So this is one of the spots where I would have advised mostly not c-betting.
Right.
So I think you want to mostly use probably something that looks like a 15 to 20% c-bet strategy. Primarily you want to be checking. The hands that are going to bet more often are, so we're going to touch base really quickly on two concepts. So first of all, so the first idea is basically duplication, where you want to use, on average, not entirely, but on average, what you want to do is you want to try to use similar hands to bluff as what you would be value betting with. So we start with the most efficient value bets on this flop. The most efficient value bet on this flop that stands out, it would be a hand like pocket queens. The reason that pocket queens is one of the most efficient value bets is because if your opponent flats pre-flop, he's unlikely to have aces or kings. So between queens, kings, and aces, those three hands are all pretty much the same hand. They all get value from pretty much the same region, which is Jack X and below, right? And queens, though, checks worse. Okay, and why does queens check worse? Well, because there are two overcards for queens. There's only one overcard for kings, and there's no overcards for aces. So queens is just a more efficient bet than kings or aces because it's a less efficient check. Get value from the same range and concede more equity when you check, therefore more efficient bet. So we're going to have a higher frequency bet here with queens than maybe some other hands. We're going to have so we still have that 20% bet. Queens is one of the hands that's going to really like to bet. A hand like kings similarly, and then duplication would mean choosing hands that duplicate those value bets. So when we bluff, we might want a hand like king queen, for example. That would stand out as being the most obvious example. Ace 10 offsuit doesn't really do much here for a kind of, like it just doesn't do a whole lot. The ace of hearts is somewhat helpful. It blocks backdoor flush draw floats. It's not like useless, but it's not meaningfully helpful. And we have a really modest bet. So our range is going to 80% check, 20% bet. A hand like queens is going to bet more often, but not always. Okay, so it's kind of complicated, but the queen's hand's probably going to bet like 60% of the time, not quite always. And this hand is probably going to check closer to like 90% of the time because this hand doesn't bet that well. A hand that bets better would be like ace 2 of hearts, which I think you could understand why. Like a hand like ace 2 or ace 3 of hearts, or a hand like maybe even ace 5 of spades might bet better, or a hand like 7/8. 7/8 suited can check call as well. So. But like those types of properties, like that will help you with betting a little bit, and this hand will probably check more. So I'd say that part of the reason why you're finding it hard to play out of position in these spots after betting is because this should mostly check. So that's going to make it really difficult because nothing good really happens here. It's going to be really like after we bet now, it's going to be really hard for us. Whether you're playing the hand or I'm playing the hand, it's just going to be hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead, you bet, and then let's see what happens. Okay, that's a pretty good turn. And you continued firing, and I think that's okay. I'm just trying to evaluate what the sizing should be here. So this is probably like just a touch small. So after you make this bet, there's going to be 28 in the middle, like 29 in the middle after he calls, right? So yeah, there's 29 in the middle after he calls. He's going to be left with about 25. And so it's not way off. It's just a little bit small at the margin. What you're trying to do is you're trying to invest similar fractions across each street. And so you're relatively close, but I think you should probably bet a little bit bigger on the turn so that the fractions are a little bit more proximate going into the river.
Right.
So maybe you want to bet like 9 big blinds here or 8.85. I really don't have a problem with this. This is pretty damn close. So that's fine. I like betting. Now what do we do?
Guess.
I think you check.
Oh, shit. We skipped to the next hand, apparently. No, sorry, we're back. Yeah, no, it's the next hand. Let me cycle back.
My man Spraggy. Let's go.
I'm supposed to be the streamer guy, too. All right, bet. Rivers of 3. Back.
Yes, I actually like that. So there's just a couple of heuristics, like really simple rules of thumb that you want to use to try to help you. And in this scenario, one of those is it's really helpful to try to unblock bluffs. However you would define that in whatever situation you're in. So in this situation, bluffs would be defined mostly as clubs, right? I mean, yes. that's the obvious,
pretty logical.
Large number of combos that are going to be a bluff. And so when we shove the river, there's one card we really would want to stay away from, and that's the ace of clubs. The ace of clubs would be a very high frequency check fold for us, and that's because suited aces are a meaningful part of his pre-flop calling range, and then they end up being a meaningful part of his call flop, call turn range. And then they end up being a meaningful part of his fold the river to a bet range. So you'd really try to avoid the ace of clubs. You don't have that. That's great. Other clubs won't help you out either. You have none. So I think that the river shove's pretty good. I have no problem with that. So I think this river line's solid. Yeah, we'll go work out differently.
All right. Don't worry about that. All right, so again, ace 10, we raise, call, get a lot of respect. And I think I just bet here.
Sure. So from an efficiency perspective, this would qualify. So like this kind of ties into to that idea. I think that really, so when you're the most out of position player in a really kind of significant multi-way pot, so with lots of players, when you're the most out of position, betting extremely small is actually really valuable. And the reason is because the more people you have, the more people are sandwiched. And so if you bet something like 3 big blinds here or 2.5 big blinds, it's actually a really effective bet size in a multi-way pot, because the way to defend against small bet sizes is by calling a lot or by raising a lot, and both of those counter strategies are actually really difficult when you're sandwiched and you're playing as Leidbach or something. Like, it's very difficult to navigate like that. And similarly for, what are these screen names? I can't pronounce any of them. So like when you're the other players in this hand other than the button, it's very difficult to counter a smaller bet size from out of position. Now, as the most in position player, that doesn't really work. And the reason is because as the most in position player, you can check and see the next card. Whereas as the most out of position player, if you check, they can still bet any amount they want between 0 and their whole stack. So you're not really reopening the action. There's no new risks you're introducing. You're not extending any new strategic options. But by betting really small in these really multi-way pots as the most out of position player, you apply a lot of pressure to the players to your direct left and the other players that remain sandwiched. So I like really small bet sizes here. I might have even bet smaller than this. I don't mind this bet size. I might have checked. Obviously, I think checking's an important part of what we do. But I don't have a problem with this bet. This is okay. So you bet.
Okay.
I might have bet small and then you win. Cool. Let's go to the next one.
Easy game. Raise, button calls, and we're heads up. I do very well on the flop. I think I just end up 1/3. Sure.
So you are really short, and I would have to run this one to know exactly, but just looking at it, because it's like a very specific type of flop, but just looking at it, there are some meaningful asymmetries that exist. Aces, kings, obviously, and ace king. Meaningful, I mean, like a lot of people 3-bet ace king a little bit too much. They don't flat it enough. And so like that kind of asymmetry will oftentimes allow you to bet larger. It'll also allow you to ramp up frequency for c-betting. Now, with this spot specifically, I don't think there are any really thin value bets in your range. So I actually don't love this bet size. This is not a scenario, so when the button flats, it's not a scenario where you want to bet range, in my opinion. You have too many hands that just don't function very well like that, so like king queen or king jack or king 10 or jack 10 or jack 9. And those hands don't function well as bets. Whether you bet small or large or not, it doesn't matter. He's got too much ace x, and you really would rather not bet king x or jack x too often. Unless you're bluffing. And if you're bluffing, you probably want to ramp up the bet sizing a little bit. So you're kind of short, and since you're short, you're not going to use huge bet sizings. There's really no reason to use pot. If you use pot, you're going to have 22 and a half or whatever in the middle on the next street, and you're going to be left with about 26. So that's like a little more than 1x pot. That doesn't really make that much sense. You're not sizing things appropriately in that scenario. But I think a bet of 5 or 5.5 seems more reasonable, considering that your betting range probably starts at ace queen. I mean, I don't know if you're betting ace 10 really comfortably here, but I would imagine that you probably check even a hand as strong as like ace 10. And what do you can tell me, what do you do with ace 10? What do you do with ace 9 suited? If you have ace 9 suited,
ace 9, I'm definitely checking. Ace 10, I'm probably checking. Like any other ace x, I'm going to check.
Yeah. Okay. So your betting range gets your betting range is really
I'm
nuts.
starting at ace queen, right?
Your betting range is really strong hands. It's really good hands, and then you're going to check pretty often, and your checking range is going to be more medium strength hands. And so these smaller bets are typically more appropriate when you have like a lot of thinner value bets in your range. They get less or you're betting like most of your range, right? And here I think it's pretty obvious you're going to check a huge fraction of your range and then bet a smaller fraction. And so I think that you want to use, like, to me, you would want to use a larger bet size here and try to strike the balance of like a high frequency check. This hand could obviously have checked. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. But I think when you do bet, you want to just scale the sizing. I think this is a bit too small.
Okay. We bet, get called. I bet.
Sure, I think betting's fine. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I wouldn't have had a problem if you checked, but I don't love checking after having bet the flop, so I like betting. Continue to bet mostly in this scenario, and emptying the clip seems okay. Although once again, I don't really mind. I don't mind a river check. Maybe I do mind a river check. I mean, like, I think shoving's fine. I mean, I think I would try to check the river with this hand, maybe like non-zero, but not a lot. So shoving seems good.
I don't remember what tournament this was in, obviously, but like at whatever, if this is like a whatever $30 tournament, do you think people just pot control insanely at this rate?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
So it's just best to just shove.
Yeah, exactly.
Always right.
At lower limits, they're just not going to bluff. They're not going to turn off hands into bluffs or anything like that. So.
Right. Yeah. They'll just get here with like Jack X of spades and check it behind.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So hopefully you guys were able to enjoy that brief introduction to the full-length video that Spraggy and I did together, available on the BBZCoaching.com website. Spraggy, working with him is always fun. You know, he's got a great sense of humor. He takes the criticism really well, and he just makes things fun. So I think that the video will be great for you guys. I think it'll make it more enjoyable. It'll make it easier to learn from and digest. So you guys should definitely go check that out. The things that he and I really spent the time focusing on throughout this video are the things that he said have been causing him the most problems in 2019. So those problems would be playing out of position, primarily as an early position player, and trying to defend a checking strategy, as well as what to do on future streets after having bet the flop. And so we focused on those two things. I think we left him with a good sense of what to work on throughout the 2019 W Coup, and wish him nothing but the best. So thanks a lot, Spraggy. Really appreciate that. And thank you guys for checking out this video. You can subscribe below. You can, again, check out that video on BBZstaking.com. You can check us out on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, Twitter. We really appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and we look forward to seeing you in 2019. Thanks very much, and enjoy your day. Bye-bye.